Here, JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. June 14th, 2024. Happy Flag Day. Talk about the markets, some names I'm in, some names I'm looking at. Go from there, as I always do. Take a look at the S&P. Futures are down this morning. Some of it, of course, the S&P is up nearly 1.6% so far this week. So you have to think there'll be a little consolidation. And then there's also the uncertainty in Europe. There's elections. People are worried. Is that going to ruin the status quo or whatever it is? So anytime you see uncertainty, especially in regards to a political situation, who knows if policies are going to change, uh, it creates a reason for folks to take some profits. And also their yields are going up. You also had, I think, Japan overnight. They kind of stalled on their policy. So I guess you take all that and so more geopolitical stuff as opposed to what's going on in the U.S., which I think is a good thing because then it opens an opportunity for the markets to bounce here off the open. So you take a look at a SPY, nice chop this yesterday, opened in the green all the way down to lows under 540 at 1230, and then we bounced to close green. The Dow closed in the red for the second session in a row. I don't really care too much about the Dow. What I do care about is small caps. But anyway, watching today 539 or so. Hopefully that holds on the SPY. If it doesn't, I might look for some hedge puts. Not that I think we're going to have a huge sell-off, but I think there might be an opportunity to play a little bit of downside. On the flip side, if that holds, I think it bodes well. And I'm not going to look for, I don't think I'm going to look for any lotto calls, depending on, I mean, opportunities present themselves all day, but I'll probably just sit on my hands in regards to that. And the thing that I wouldn't say it has me worried, but you take a look at the small caps down nearly 1% yesterday, and small cap futures are down 1.2% this morning. Just frustrating to see small caps fail to find footing. And look at the 50-day moving average on the IWM, it's 201.60, and we're going to open way below that. So hopefully that we find a bounce in small caps. Otherwise, I fear maybe there might be a little pullback coming into next week. Not getting my bear suit on, so doesn't mean I think we're having a huge pullback, but certainly some something I'll be aware of. I'm not going to be naive to think that we can't have some kind of pullback, especially with the move we had on the markets over the last couple of months. So some names to look at, and of course, first I'll talk about Adobe. It's good and bad, right? So frustrating. All week I was talking about Adobe. I added some calls to play for premium build into earnings. The stock went up to I think it was 471 on Wednesday, and then it sold off after the Fed and all that. So I lost my opportunity to lock some at least some of the costs in so I could ride free into earnings. And then what does it do yesterday? It was flat. It was actually red, and the premiums on both sides skyrocketed. The puts were up over 100%, the calls were up 100%, despite the stock staying flat, which in an ideal scenario, if you're in some calls and you want to be able to lock the cost in and ride free into earnings, which when you have a binary event, that's a good thing. So sure enough, what does Adobe do after the close yesterday? A beat and raise kind of dispelled concerns from its last earnings report. There's still some negative analysts on the stock. I think KeyBank, they have an underperformer rating. They raised their price target from 445 to 450. I don't see how you can be too negative Adobe, especially in the backdrop of the AI and what it's the integration and stuff with NVDA. So lucky still have some like 530 strikes. It was at 524, so I figured if it was 528, the call's going to be $7 or $8. If it's 530 here, they're probably going to be 8, 9, maybe even $10. So my plan with the rest of my calls is lock some in right at the open. I'll probably have an order in at 9 or 8 or $9, and then I'll hold the rest just because I think, and I talked about these spots on Adobe over the last couple days, is I think there were the big spots 515 or so, and then 530 is that gap fill. So if it breaks through 530, I think it has a clear at least $10 to the upside. So that's what I'd wait for, and maybe the 530 strikes might be 15, $20. So that's the plan for today. Hopefully a nice end to the week. So that's Adobe. TERN, not much here to talk about TERN either, but finally over that $8 strike. I thought once it broke $8, just like with $7, it was going to be off to the races. Sure enough, it goes all the way up to, I think it was 840, hit 841, then pulled back to close right at 798, just to frustrate me. This morning it's gapping higher, so the bid's already over $8. I'm not sure if I'll do it today, but depending on what I can get, I'll probably lock the last of my June strikes in just to take that risk off. They're already up nicely. I already locked some of those in, and I'll just hold the rest of my July 750s and 10s. at some point this has FOMO 9, 10, 15, so on. So I shouldn't say it 15, but you never know. I've said this before with Turn as well. There's all the analysts, pretty much a majority of the analysts that cover the stock have price targets substantially above the current stock price for Turns. 15, 18. I think there's one at 25. So I'm not saying that's where it goes. Analysts are just part of the equation when you're trading, but certainly gives some color to how the possibilities of Turn. And one of these weekends we're going to get some kind of M&A and some, especially it's going to be the GLP1 space because that's the hot space, and it's going to be one of the names, whether it's be Turn, GPCR, Alt, so on and so forth. So love Turn here. Lock more of the Julys in yesterday for a little over, I think it was 300%, and then I'll probably just hold the rest of those, lock the Junes in, and go from there. So that's that. GPCR, another GLP1 name, bull flags, similar to what's setting up with HPQ. Consolidation, huge move from its data, and then considering it hasn't really sold off too much, you have to think there's buyers there and just waiting for the sellers to kind of, it's the tug of war I always talk about, where the sellers and buyers are fighting each other, and once the sellers run out of shares to sell, the stock takes off. Keep looking for a position on GPCR. I think it trades north of 70 in the coming weeks and months. And again, similar to Turn, it's one of those pocket acquisition names that in the GLP1 space. So don't be surprised if you see me add some GPCR calls. Adobe's over 530 in the pre-market. Finally, Aristanetworks. So I put it on the watch list yesterday morning, and I didn't even know Morgan Stanley upgraded the stock, or they maintained their overweight rating. They raised their price target. The stock was gapping in the pre-market. I thought someone had to do with Broadcom. Needless to say, the stock was running at the open. I grabbed some strikes. Within about 5 minutes, I was able to close those out close some out for over 100% to cover some costs. I closed some more out at the end of the day because you never know what's going to happen on a Friday. So I still have a couple strikes. I think it trades 335 plus today. So if it's right here at 329, if it doesn't get to the 330s in the first 5-10 minutes of the trading session, I'll probably look to just close the rest of the calls and move on. But great trade there on Aristanetworks. Universal Display, I talked about it yesterday morning on the watch list, as well as closing the last of my June 210s out, which I did right at the open. And I still have 220s. Take a look. I mean, the stock's up, was it 8-9 sessions in a row? I think, again, it's on this backdrop of what's going on with Apple and the possibility of this refresh cycle that might hit not just Apple, but Samsung and all the other phone manufacturers, and give folks a reason to upgrade. And that's the big selling point for Apple as a business model, to know that each phone iteration is going to possibly require folks to want to upgrade their model. But love Universal Display. Talked about it yesterday. I think 255 is the all-time high. 256 back in 2020, 2021, somewhere in there. I'm not saying it's going there next week or the week after, but if it holds its ground here today, especially if the market's weak at the open and it starts to bounce, I might look for some strikes into July to play for a move into the 220s, 230s, and beyond. Aligntechnologies. So I still have 290 strikes. I added some spec calls yesterday. I was looking to add them on Wednesday. It looks like in this name, seems like every quarter or every couple of quarters when it has a stock buyback. And what Align does is they have these accelerated stock buyback programs where they send the money to Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs. I don't know who's doing it this time. They run the accelerated stock buyback program, and the stock usually it does really well. And Align has bought back so many shares that it's not going to take much for the stock just to melt higher, even if the market sells off. So I was looking for 275s. They were expensive on a risk reward basis. I think it has a possibility of trading up north of 280, hopefully today. But if not today, I'll look for some strikes to add to my 290s into next week and possibly further out, because their accelerated stock buyback authorization ends July. I don't know if it's July 1st. So there's a very finite period of time for them to get this done. And you combine a stock buyback with folks buying the stock after its earnings sell-off, which didn't make sense. And I think that's just a cocktail for a move to the upside. There's HPQ with the bull flag. Was a 4, 1, 2, actually 3 of the 4 sessions this week to the upside, but only up 0.4%. Still think that heads to 40 bucks. Unfortunately, it's taken its time, but it's not the most volatile name, so going to be patient on that one. C3 AI, disappointing. I mean, it's down 3.6% yesterday, gapping lower this morning in sympathy with the market. I put 29.25, 29.50. If it holds that, I think it's still good to go. You look at the uptrend, still would hold the uptrend. You know, I've said it a lot of times as well. This is one of those names that's very divisive. Some people think it's I wouldn't say they think it's a zero, but they think maybe it's a $5 or $10 stock. There's been short pieces on it, so I'll continue to hold my strikes. I probably won't look for anything on that one in the near future. And then if the market finds the weakness, just so you know, it's 539 or so. That's probably the line in the sand. If we break under that, you know, I have the LRCX hedge puts I got earlier in the week. I'll probably look for that one as a possible hedge trade. And Broadcom premiums have come out. The stock, you know, had the huge move after earnings all the way up to 1700 and change. It was selling off in the afternoon. I looked at it. I said this could be not that again. I've said this before. When I've added Broadcom puts at 1200, 1300, and I've made money on those puts, I always say, you know, I put the asterisk next to it, saying, it's not that I think this company is not going higher over the couple of years. I just think there's an opportunity, a very short term opportunity to protect call positions via hedge. So similar right now. If I do get puts on AVGO or Broadcom, it's not that I think, you know, I don't believe in a business, it's garbage or what. No, I just think there's an opportunity just to play for some quick profits, and when that happens, puts go up quite a bit. So that's it. I'm trying to think of some of the other names or things going on. Kind of I wouldn't call it the quiet period, but the good thing about what happens right now with earnings season winding down, you do usually have a blackout period with all these companies that report earnings. They can't do buybacks before earnings, 3 days or whatever, and 3 days after. So those blackout periods are gone. So it allows opportunities not only for the company to restart their buyback plans, but also insiders, right? The insiders usually have a blackout period. So that could be some fuel for upside, at least into next week, pending any crazy things that go on in Europe over the weekend. We'll have to see how that plays out. Anyway, let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio. I have 30 minutes to the open. Rock and roll.